listener production.
Hey, I'm Bension Siebert and welcome to The Briefing. The small Caribbean nation of Haiti doesn't often make news in Australia. For your background, modern-day Haiti is the result of the first successful slave revolution in modern history, about 200 years ago. But their French masters came back and forced generations of Haitians to pay for their freedom in cash. That's a big reason why the country has been and continues to be in such dire poverty. The last time you might remember hearing about Haiti was all the way back in 2010, when a catastrophic earthquake killed 250,000 people there. In 2021, the president of Haiti was assassinated. But the country is making headlines across the world now because it's descended into absolute chaos. Last week, thousands of criminals were set loose from Haiti's prisons, with gangs taking control of the country's airport. On Tuesday evening our time, the unelected Prime Minister Ariel Henry resigned while stranded in Puerto Rico. And now there's a massive power vacuum, and many countries, most importantly the US, but also Canada, France, El Salvador and Kenya, have a stake in what happens next. Nicolas Lemay-Hebert is the Director of Research at the Australian National University's Department of International Relations, and he joins us now. Nick, thanks so much for joining us on The Briefing.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for inviting me.
There's been a few weeks of increasing violence in Haiti, and the Prime Minister, Ariel Henry, as we've mentioned, has resigned. What happens with this power vacuum now? Who's controlling?
So it's a very good question. The answer is no one is controlling anything at the moment, but one could also claim that he was not really controlling anything in the last month or so. You know, it's been increasingly losing power and losing kind of traction in Haiti. You know, the gangs, they have different accounts there, but we're talking about like controlling 80% of Port-au-Prince. Haiti is a highly centralized country, so whoever controls Port-au-Prince controls the country. It's very tricky. And then the gangs obviously are not a unified kind of thing, right? They also fight each other. But they really took advantage of him being away outside of the country to actually make this kind of political statement of demonstrating that the government is literally not controlling anything. So that means they have attacked the airport, making sure that it cannot come back to the country. They have attacked a number of police stations. So really demonstrating the full kind of power that they can have over the Haitian daily lives.
Tell us about the situation right now in Haiti and what led us up to this point.
Well, it's a very confusing situation, right? So the immediate kind of background of this is obviously the assassination of the past president, Jovenel Moïse. At this time, it was very confusing time because we had a prime minister that was just appointed by Jovenel Moïse, Ariel Henry, for one day, not even one day, wasn't actually confirmed on his position. And then the international community then decided to back Ariel Henry as president in interim, acting president. And this led to all sorts of contestation inside Haiti. And then the criminal gangs basically taking over the country over a period of a year and a half, up to this moment where Ariel Henry was really trying to get a military intervention to bolster his own position inside the country, has been trying to do this for a year and a half, and with no avail. We have the Kenyan government who is seemingly keen to support or to help the Haitian government. And Ariel Henry was actually in Kenya to try to broker this deal and finalize this commitment. And this is at the specific moment where he lost control of the country. So we're talking about last Friday, actually. So now we have a transitional council has been established in Kingston, Jamaica by the CARICOM. With the kind of the usual suspects in terms of the Haitian kind of political parties and business interests and all this. And obviously they are already fighting each other inside that committee. So it's very unlikely that this is going to be smooth sailing for this committee. And the the criminal gangs don't seem to want to play as ball as well, and they want to contest this committee. So it's going to be very, very tricky, very difficult time ahead of us.
How did gangs become so powerful in Haiti?
So, the gangs have been present in Haiti since at least the 70s and probably even before that. Papadoc, who was the kind of dictator of Haiti in the 60s, 70s, he was using the Tonton Macoute as a kind of extension of his power to actually conduct some kind of operation to oppress political parties or journalists, for instance, or anyone who would actually deem to oppose him. After that, in the more recent history, Jean-Bertrand Aristide, who was deposed in 2004, was also using a variety of different gangs known as the Chimeras, the Chimères, to support his power. And so there's a lot of, they have always been present, and it's a bit like a tide, like there's some high, moments, and then there's some low tides in a sense.
Could you tell us a little bit about what daily life is like in Haiti at the moment? It has been like for the people?
Yeah, it's difficult for me to say, in my comfort of Canberra at the moment, but from, I'm trying to get accounts from my friends who are police officers, some of them, so, and they hide at the moment, but it's very tricky. And again, you have to understand that in general, life in Haiti for the lower middle class, let's say up to the kind of everyday people, is generally very tricky, right? So it's always a kind of a demonstration of resilience and trying to handle all the kind of things that life throws at you. But in this specific respect, it is absolutely hell on earth. We're talking about hospitals with patients inside, but absolutely no medical personnel. And that was from last weekend. So I don't know the current situation now. But so we have all the medical personnel that decided not to show up because of the security threats posed by the criminal gangs. We're talking about a number of shops. People also just selling stuff on the street. The informal economy is quite important in Haiti. These people have been actually robbed by the criminal gangs. So it's very, very tricky at the moment in Haiti.
You described this as part of a neo-colonial situation in a way. What is the role of outside countries and the international community in Haiti at the moment?
I describe this as neo-colonial kind of endeavor because it's how most Haitians will be describing it. That doesn't mean that they don't want a military intervention. I think that everyone thinks that it's absolutely needed at the moment, but it's what type of intervention are we talking about? Who are the actors that we're going to be actually propping up through this intervention? This is what is tricky, right? And the role of the international community is varied. It depends on the key players. The key players in Haiti has always been the US first and foremost. France in the background, not wanting to talk too much because of the past, obviously, has absolutely no credibility. So when they speak a little bit too much, people tend to frown very quickly and say, who are you exactly to tell us what we should be doing? And then Canada is also quite a key player in all this in the past 20, 30 years, if nothing else, because of the weight of the diaspora in Montreal and elsewhere, which is it's quite important for local politics, but also just because of the kind of ties that we have been able to build over the period of years. This is the kind of situation where, everyone is talking on behalf of Haitians and thinking about Haiti. I think this is important. I think the Americans try to do the right thing, but we always fall with the same type of interventions that tend to basically reproduce the same issues that we've been through for the last 30 or so years.
What are people hoping for the future in Haiti, and what do you think comes next?
Well, right now, the Haitian people want to return to a statu quo ante, right? Like they want to return, even if the situation under under Moïse presidency was not exactly rosy and great. They want to have a modicum of stability. So that's the most important thing, obviously, for most Haitians that they will be asking for. But in terms of like medium term, I think we also need to be a bit more creative here in how to interact with Haitian groups. And so there's been a number of initiatives on the ground that has emerged like basically Haitian groups, Haitian civil society organizing themselves. They built some infrastructure all together, not wanting any kind of help or support from the state, right? The state in Haiti is completely decriminalized in most of the time. I'm just giving you an example. I was actually teaching in Haiti in 2010 after the earthquake. Some of my students actually were doing the census, right? And people always lie to everyone who's doing the census. They were looking at, how many kind of chickens do you have, or how many kind of heads of, porks do you have? And the people will be lying. And then you say, well, I can see the chickens, in the background. Oh, no, they are my cousin's chicken. Actually, because if you declare them, the Haitian state will confiscate them, right? So there are a number of ways that we have to think about the Haitian state, how it's operating in the country, how we have to decentralize the country, how we have to look at civil society that is quite vibrant in Haiti and that's trying to kind of mobilize themselves and present a different vision for governance. And we need to be able to support this without falling into the same traps of helping the old political parties and the old business elites who is profiting from this situation.
Is there a clear path to something like free and fair elections in Haiti?
Well, the path to free and fair election is through non-involvement of the internationals to a certain extent. This is what has happened in the past elections. It's always that when there's someone who disagrees with what the internationals want, especially the Americans want, then the Americans, out of a sudden, pull a few tricks from the basket. So, we've seen this in 2010 contested election. We've seen this before. But also the path to a free and fair election is through a electoral council that's going to be fair and inclusive. And this is very tricky. This is one of the most important power that has been assigned to this traditional council that has been established in Kingston, as I mentioned. So yes, this council will have to appoint a prime minister, and that's quite important. We have to see who's going to be this prime minister that's going to be appointed and how inclusive and how he's going to be received locally, but also they were going to be appointing this electoral council. And this, in general, this has been the very tricky thing for Haiti. And this is where politicization happens, and this is where all the kind of dirty tricks happen. And so we'll need to keep a close eyes on this if we want to really see free and fair elections in Haiti.
Well, we'll certainly continue to keep a close eye on it. Thanks so much, Nicolas, for your time.
My pleasure.
That was Nicolas Lemay-Hebert. That's it for the briefing today. Check back in at 6 a.m. for the morning episode where we'll be explaining a terrifying AI scam that uses the voice of your loved ones to blackmail you. In the meantime, if you like what we do at the briefing, please tell 17 to 25 of your closest friends about it. I'm Bension Siebert. Thanks for listening.
Listener.